Hello, BookTube. I thought I'd film in a happy moment since I filmed lately in somber moments. I uh, I took my sweet old dog, Malin Moore, uh, outside just a few minutes ago for her usual. She lets me know when she has to go out, and I put on her leash and we go down the driveway at a slow creep, and then we turn the corner, and that's hard because she has no balance and no motor control, and then we walk up the sidewalk just until she gets tired. There's traffic noise out there, but she can't hear it anymore. There's the bright sun, but it can't be hot enough for her anymore. And eventually she picked a spot and let me know that she had to go, and I bent down and steadied her so that she could go. And then we made our way slowly back inside. Uh, and the little puppy, Frida, was waiting for us. Of course, she's eagerly waiting when we go and when we come back. And I thought, I know you're just a baby. I know you're only 10 weeks old. And you're not finished yet. Your body isn't finished yet. But even so, you know you're missing something here. And that doesn't feel right. I don't have a collar or a harness small enough for a puppy this size. I don't actually have a collar or a harness small enough for the size that she will eventually be. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to hit the rest of you up. Those of you in the U.S., of course, I don't want overseas mailing costs. But if those of you in the U.S. happen to have a relatively adjustable harness for a small dog, a puppy that will grow to be 15 pounds, in that range, I would love it if you sent it to me. I'll recompense you with a pile of books. But I don't have anything like that. And I thought, oh, I know, it's a shame. I'll get you a collar your size so that we can, eventually, in Halloween or Thanksgiving, we can sort of try to start getting you outside. Uh, and then I thought, there's nothing wrong with her, and there's nothing wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with outside. Puppies have been outside at her age and younger for a long time. For a long, long time. Without immediately dying, no matter what veterinary websites might say. And also, uh, prefabricated, industry friendly, overpriced dog collars and harnesses also didn't exist a long, long time ago when there were puppies just her age. In fact, I vividly remember a time, myself in my own lifetime, when such things didn't exist. So I took one of the many extra leashes that are here at Hyde Cottage. Those of you who've been here will know there's a coat rack out in the kitchen that's just draped in leashes and harnesses. All the leashes and all the harnesses are too big, and all the collars are too big. But I thought, she doesn't need much. She's not. I used to compare walking my Basset Hound to putting a leash around an air conditioning unit and then just dragging it around around the block, and that's what it was like. But then I thought, no, this is a good dog. This is a smart, attentive dog. So I found a piece of soft string and made a loopy collar for it with a little bow past the knot that I could attach the leash to. I thought, she's not going to go far. She has tiny, stubby little legs. She's still a puppy. It's not that much of a risk, and I want her to see outside when she's not in my arms or in a tote bag. So I put that on her, and I thought, well, I remembered that my Basset Hound, Lucy, needed 4.5 years to become accustomed to her harness. For 4.5 years, 4 times every day, when I put it on, she said, "What the heck is this? What the? I've never seen anything like this before." So I thought, even scaling for a non-Basset Hound, this will take some time. But no, no, Frida understood right away that the leash was just a little technicality, that it was a doorway for her to the world. And so I put her down on the cement outside the back door, and she was overwhelmed. Blowing leaves, bugs, the sky overhead, trees, the smell of everything. Uh, and I thought, this might be too soon. And then I thought, well, no, keeping her in the house isn't a way to get her used to all that. Too soon isn't going to happen because of that. So I encouraged her to take a step or two, and then another step or two, and then another step or two, and it started to work. I'm amazed to say it. She's still just so young, but it started to work. We went. I intentionally did just the route that Malin and I did: down the driveway, around the corner, up the sidewalk a bit, then turn around, then come back the same way we came. And when we were at the apex of that route, a little grassy point up just a bit. Uh, she pooped. My little Frida pooped outside the way a good dog does. Her very first time pooping outside. She knew, she seemed to understand right away that her sensory bombardment and the noise all around her was no good excuse. And she seemed to sense right away that other dogs have gone there. So that's one poop of hers, the very first poop of hers, that I don't have to pick up from this house. I had to bag it, but that's all. Uh, and then we came back. And by the time we got back to our starting point, she was walking with a fair degree of confidence. She was starting to sort out right away what she should ignore and what she should pay attention to. And she was starting to sense that this could all be hers, that she can experience it all. Uh, this is very nice. It opens up huge vistas. Not least of which is that now, from now on, I can take the two of them out at the same time, so that if her instinct is to pee or poop outside, she can now see it demonstrated. She can see that that's what I want, and that that's what the older dog that she worships does. But anyway, that's a little doggy interval. If she bombards close enough to the camera, I will show her to you in all her glory from being outside. But in the meantime, since I was happy, I thought I would open some mail. I got 2 packages in the mail this morning from UPS. I thought we'd just go through the 2 of them and see what's what. Let's see here. Well, you have to pardon the puppy interlude. Those will probably happen. So what have we got here? Okay, this is from Harvard University Press. And this is I Remain Yours, Common Lives in Civil War Letters. Let's see. It's by Christopher Hager, and it comes out next year. When North and South went to war, millions of American families endured their first long separation. For men in the armies and their wives and children and parents and siblings at home, letter writing was the sole means to communicate. Yet for many of these Union and Confederate families, taking pen to paper was a new and daunting task. I Remain Yours narrates the Civil War from the perspective of ordinary people who had to figure out how to solve the emotional strains of war and sustain their closest relationships using only the written word. That sounds fascinating. This is the author is a professor of English at Trinity College, and I'm sure that you all, those of you who've seen Ken Burns' documentary *The Civil War*, here you are. Here's my little outside explorer. Yes, there you go. There's my little outside explorer. Yes, yes. Oh, you were getting it. You pooped outside. I couldn't be happier. You pooped outside. You're a good girl. Oh, all right. Sorry. As I was saying, I'm sure that those of you who saw Ken Burns' documentary, *The Civil War*, if there's any of you who haven't seen it, you should see it. But unexpectedly for him, he later said, and unexpectedly certainly for the rest of the country, that was a documentary in the pre-internet era, and the whole country stopped to watch it. Because it ended up being so much more epically better than the Civil War documentaries anyone had seen before. And for everyone who was watching, one of the things that struck was the Baroque beauty of the letters that were quoted. One in particular, a signature moment in the series. Those of you who've seen it will know the one I'm talking about. But it made everybody curious about an age when people wrote that way. And it's interesting, this book might delve into the people who didn't quite write that way, who maybe didn't summon eloquence. I wonder if we can find, does this author do a textual study, or are there examples? Oh, yeah, it's a textual study, so it's going to be hard to ferret out one particular... yeah, okay, well, we've got one here. Many of the men converging on Indianapolis were ardent young volunteers. Isaac Mark Abbott was only a boy, 18 years old when he enlisted in the summer of 1862. Thornton could practically have been his father. Thornton is another character in the book. For an unmarried man, first days in the Army could feel like a grand adventure, and Isaac wrote home to his parents from Camp Joe Reynolds in high spirits, and then we quote him. "It is with pleasure that I take my pencil in hand to scratch a few lines to you to let you know how I'm making at soldiering. I don't have any duty to perform except to dispose of my share of the grub, and have discharged that duty promptly so far. uh, from the beginning, we're told, from the very beginning, his novel surroundings widened his eyes. I just experienced that. Although I'm assuming that Isaac Mark Abbott already knew how to poop. From the very beginning, his novel surroundings widened his eyes. Quote, I wish I could be right where I am for a little while just to see the sights I am in the busiest fort of the city. I bet 1,000 people have passed me on the pavement since I commenced my letter. This is someone who almost certainly hasn't seen 1,000 people in his life. Wonderful. All right. Well, it looks like it's going to be more a literary study than an anthology, and I'm up for that. So fantastic. Of course, now she won't leave me alone. First, I had to call her over here. Now she won't leave me alone. Do you want to say hi to the people, Frida? Huh? They like you. They do. That's that face. It greets me in the morning. You pooped outside. Yes, you did. I'm gonna go on to the second package if that's all right with you. Here, I'll just put you down here. You don't have to leave me. You can just stay right there. And then we've got this second one. What have we got here? Here, let's give you something to chew on. Here, chew on that. There you go. Okay. This is... Oh, no pub sheet in this one? No. All right, well, that's all right. We can live without them. This is by Charles Mann, and it's also due next year. And it's called The Wizard and the Prophet. The remarkable scientists and their dueling visions to shape tomorrow's world. And it's got... There's what's going to be the finished cover. You've got a farm and a wind farm. And Thomas Mann is a prolific historian. Some of his work I've actually liked. He has a penchant for the kind of keyhole history that I kind of hate. People will pick, the color red or one particular flower, or in his case, 1491 and I think 1493. I think he did the before and after years of the New World Conquest. But he did a bunch of other things too that I've liked. So let's see here. This is an incisive portrait of two little-known 20th century scientists, Norman Borlaug and William Voigt. Norman Borlaug will not be unknown to those of you who are West Wing fanatics. He gets a rather loving mention on that show, in one of the best episodes. Whose diametrically opposed views shaped our ideas about the environment, laying the groundwork for how people in the 21st century will choose to live in tomorrow's world. In 40 years, Earth's population will reach 10 billion. I am firmly of the opinion that it has passed 10 billion already, but there's a conservative cladistic that would say that. So, can our world support that? What kind of world will it be? Those answering these questions generally fall into two deeply divided groups, wizards and prophets, as Charles Mann calls them in this balanced, authoritative, non-polemical book. Slow down there, Seymour. I'll quite literally be the judge of whether or not this is balanced, authoritative, and non-polemical. The prophets, he explained, follow William Voigt, founder environmentalist who believed that in using more than our planet has to give, our prosperity will lead us to ruin. Cut back was his mantra, otherwise everyone will lose. The wizards are the heirs of Norman Borlaug, whose research in effect wrangled the world in service to our species to produce modern high-yield crops that saves millions from starvation. Innovate, was Borlaug's cry. Only in that way can everyone win. Mann delves into these diverging viewpoints to assess the four great challenges humanity faces: food, water, energy, and climate change. And he looks at it from both those points of view. Oh, doesn't that sound good? Boy, these are two good ones for this little mail haul. You already know the Grandpa Simpson rant that I'm going to unleash upon you for this particular thing. Those four challenges: food, water, energy, and climate change, are being posed as challenges not in and of themselves, but against the backdrop of those 10 billion people. And there's only one of them that's off the table. The idea, the question, can human industry support 10 billion humans, is easily answerable in the affirmative. It is an absolute easy yes. the what were the first three? Food, water, and energy. The United States alone could provide all of that for everybody in the world, for every one of those 10 billion humans. And that's to say nothing of the vast resources of Russia or China or South America. So the resources aren't the problem. It's the allocation of resources, of course, that is the problem. The United States makes enough food in any given year, basic staple grains and cereals and whatnot, to feed the whole world a couple of times over. The United States bread, the heartland of the United States alone does that. One relatively small patch of land in on the earth. There are gigantic tracts of arable land all over the world that aren't used. And there are gigantic tracts of arable land all over the world, including the United States, whose products are misused. Wouldn't be hard at all. Well, it would be hard. It's a huge infrastructure that would have to change. But for instance, billions of tons of corn, billions of tons of corn, edible corn. Corn can make a meal. You can make a stew out of it. You can. It's very good for you. Billions of tons of it is grown annually to feed livestock that are then grown and used for food, but more expensive food. So if you were to grow those billions of tons of corn for human consumption, rotate them, use all the latest in crop science, the world's hunger problem would disappear right away. Same thing with rice. Same thing with all the grain, cereal, and vegetable staples that people need to live and can make delicious stews and rougats out of. If you were to allocate that properly, the world's hunger problem would go away. And that is the same thing is true with water and energy. The technology exists. If the best scientific countries in the world were to pour a fraction of the energy into practical, cheap desalination, for instance, the world's drinking water problem would be solved immediately. And I would be willing to bet, I'm no scientist, mind you, but I'd be willing to bet that the technology that could increase the effectiveness and ubiquity of desalination plants would fix the energy problem as well. But the clear answer to the energy problem is solar. The clear energy there. I saw a scientific presentation years ago where a scientist said, all right, I'm going to explain to you in simple layman's terms why a photovoltaic cell can only get so small and still work. And he did. He went on at great length about how, these pie in the sky ideas of yours about having solar powered watches, solar powered backpacks, that sort of thing isn't going to happen because it needs to be only this big and no smaller or it won't work. And the only thing I could think about were all the scientists, all of them, not just some, all the leading scientists in the United States in 1910, saying that not only would it not be possible to get a car to go faster than 30 miles an hour, but that a human couldn't survive unprotected at that speed. When you say something, when you're a scientist or an expert, and you say this photovoltaic cell cannot possibly be made any smaller and still retain its efficiency, you are throwing down the gauntlet to some teenager in his mother's basement in Osaka who has already thought up the way to do that. Both those things, to make it smaller and more efficient. You're just wasting everybody's time when you say that. The air in your lungs that's used to say that could be much better spent saying, onward, innovate. But it's the fourth one that's the killer. It's climate change that's the killer because that's a tipping thing. That's not a thing you can scale back. Once it reaches a feedback loop of its own, there's nothing you can do about it. And we know that for a fact because we can look up in the sky and see Venus, which is a planet on which that happened. Where once it goes out of control, these cycles don't care about the tiny little life forms on this planet. They don't care about that at all. Once the planet starts to melt, it will just keep melting. Once green gas emissions reach a tipping point in the atmosphere, they will just keep going. I don't know about that. I sometimes I'm optimistic. Other times I think our generation is seeing the beginning of the end, and that in very little time, in 2 generations, the world will look very different. But the first three are solvable. So now, and as you can see, I'm invested in the book already, and I haven't even started it. And I'm not going to start it until next year. So that's what it's going to look like. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it again. And then this other one is a smaller, a more modest, but intensely interesting thing from Harvard University Press. This also comes out in January, and that I want to show it to you again. I Remain Yours. Common lives in Civil War letters. So not Grant writing back home to the missus. That's fascinating. Those are our two books for today on this inaugural poop day. I don't think that I Remain Yours will revive the lost art of letter writing. There was some talk years and years ago that those letters in Ken Burns' Civil War would revive the lost art of letter writing, and I miss the lost art of letter writing. I used to keep up a very active postal correspondence, and I don't do any of it anymore. My last holdout was an old friend of mine who, for years and years and years, was a librarian at the Vatican. He was the last one out of 30, 35 postal correspondents. He was the last one to finally try emailing. He finally got a computer and tried emailing me and realized that the main thing, those of us who loved letter writing, the main advantage of email is not the fact that you can write a letter at any time on any subject when something pops into your head. I'm sure that those of you who've also kept up postal correspondences and switched to email will agree with me when I say the main positive to email is that it eliminates the wait. That horrible, horrible aspect of letter writing where you wait, where you're doing the math in your head. All right, well, I sent it today. It was put in a truck today. It will reach them on Tuesday. They're probably busy. They'll have to read it on Tuesday, but it's already Friday. Why are they ignoring me like this? That wait is gone. That wait is gone now. Unless the person's bad at emailing. But anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to show you little Frida again here because she's actually extra proud of herself. There she is. There she is. Look at that. But I'll be back. I'm going to go now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.